My wife said she wanted her dream wedding. So I paid for everything, the venue, the dress, even the fireworks. But when I saw her ex walk in, smiling like he belonged there, I realized this wasn't a dream, it was a setup. When I proposed to my girlfriend, I thought I was living the dream. Her name's Emily, and for 3 years, she was everything I thought I'd ever wanted: sweet, funny, ambitious, and the kind of woman who made you feel like the luckiest guy alive. We'd met at a mutual friend's birthday party, back when I was still figuring out my career. She worked in marketing, always dressed sharply, always had something clever to say. I was instantly drawn to her. Within a year, we moved in together, and by the third, I bought the ring. When I proposed, she cried. She told me I was her safe place, the man she'd always dreamed of marrying. I believed her. The wedding planning began almost immediately. I told her she could have the wedding she always wanted. Her dream venue, her favorite flowers, whatever it took to make her happy. I didn't grow up with much, but I'd been saving for years, and this felt worth it. Emily had a vision, a rustic-themed wedding in a renovated barn surrounded by fairy lights and open fields. Every Pinterest dream come true. The costs added up fast. The venue alone was $15,000, the catering another $10,000. And don't get me started on the dress, the decorations, or the open bar she insisted on. By the time we hit $48,000, I was sweating bullets. But every time I saw the way her eyes lit up when we picked out something new, I told myself it was worth it. But as the planning went on, I started noticing something strange. She became distant. At first, I blamed stress. Planning a wedding can be intense, especially for someone like Emily who wants everything perfect. But she wasn't just tired. She was emotionally cold. She'd spend hours texting on her phone, giggling sometimes. But when I'd ask who she was talking to, she'd just say wedding stuff or bridesmaid drama. One night, I came home early from work and heard her voice through the bedroom door. She was talking softly, almost whispering. I leaned in and I heard her say, "No, you can't come. It would be too weird. I'll figure something out." I froze. The tone in her voice wasn't something I'd heard before. It wasn't the way she talked to her friends. When she noticed me standing in the doorway, she jumped, laughed nervously, and said, "Oh, you scared me. I was just talking to Carly about seating arrangements." But something about that moment stuck with me. The next few weeks went by normally, at least on the surface. The invitations were sent out, the catering finalized, and the dress was ready. I'd started to relax a little, convincing myself that I was just being paranoid. Then, one evening, while Emily was in the shower, her laptop chimed with a new email. Normally, I'd never snoop, but the subject line caught my eye. "Can't wait to see you again. It's been too long." My heart sank. I clicked. The email was from Ryan, a name I vaguely remember from early in our relationship. Her ex, the one she'd said was a mistake, and part of her past. The message read, "Hey Em, got your wedding invite. Honestly didn't expect one after everything, but I'm glad you thought of me. You look beautiful in the photos you posted. Can't wait to see you." I felt my stomach twist. I scrolled up. There was her original message to him, sent weeks earlier. "Hey, I know this might sound weird, but I want to invite you. We both moved on, and I think it would mean a lot to me if you came. You were a big part of my life, and I want you to see how far I've come." That was the moment my world tilted. I sat there, staring at the screen, reading and rereading the words. My fiancée, the woman I was about to marry, whose wedding I had paid for down to the napkin holders, had personally invited her ex-boyfriend to watch us get married. When she came out of the shower, humming and smiling, I didn't say a word. I just looked at her and asked, "Why is Ryan coming to the wedding?" The color drained from her face. She froze mid-step, clutching her towel. "What are you talking about?" "Don't lie to me, Emily." I saw the email. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Then she tried to recover. "It's not what you think. He's just a friend. I thought it would be nice to show there's no bad blood." "No bad blood." I repeated, my voice shaking. "You invited your ex to our wedding without telling me?" She crossed her arms defensively. "I didn't think it was a big deal. You're overreacting." Overreacting. That word stung. I'd spent nearly 50 grand on this wedding. I'd put in months of work, sacrificed weekends, delayed a home purchase, all for her dream day. And she was casually inviting her ex behind my back. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept imagining the ceremony, standing there, saying my vows, while her ex sat in the crowd smirking, thinking about all the things she once said to him. I couldn't do it, but I didn't confront her again right away. Instead, I made a plan. If she wanted Ryan there, fine, but she was going to regret it, because what she didn't know was that I'd already started talking to someone at the catering company who had plenty of dirt on the guest list drama that Emily had been stirring up for weeks. And the truth about how perfect she really was about to come out in front of everyone. After that night, something inside me broke, quietly, cleanly, like a branch snapping in winter. I didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't threaten to call off the wedding. I just went silent. And if there's one thing Emily never knew how to handle, it was silence. She tried to make it seem like everything was fine. She laughed louder at my jokes, kissed me more often, and acted as though we were closer than ever. But I could see it in her eyes. She was afraid, not of losing me, but of me ruining her perfect wedding. So I played along. I smiled, nodded, and went to every final appointment like nothing was wrong. Inside, I was building a plan. See, Emily didn't know that her friend from college, the one she'd hired as the assistant wedding planner, had a loose tongue. One night, after a rehearsal dinner meeting, she pulled me aside and said, "Hey, just so you know, Emily's been talking a lot about how she wants everyone to see how much better she's doing without Ryan. I thought you were cool with that. Better without Ryan." So that was it. This wasn't about no bad blood. This was about proving a point. She wanted her ex to see that she'd won, that she'd traded up, and I was the trophy. I didn't tell the planner what I'd found out. I just smiled and said, "Yeah, that sounds like Emily." But in that moment, I decided, if she wanted to use me for a show, I'd give her one she'd never forget. The next few days, I made some calls. I spoke to the photographer, the DJ, the caterers, people whose payments were still pending. I told them I wanted to make some small changes and that I'd handle the last transactions personally. No one argued. I was the one signing the checks. Then I reached out to someone Emily didn't know, a friend of mine from college, Nate, who worked in video production. I told him I needed a small favor. He grinned when I explained. "Dude, that's savage. You sure you want to go through with it?" I nodded. Completely. The day before the wedding, Emily was in full princess mode. Champagne, manicure, final dress fitting. I barely saw her. She was surrounded by her bridesmaids, posting sneak peeks of her big day on Instagram with captions like, "Tomorrow I marry my best friend, #forever starts now." I scrolled to the post while sitting in my car, waiting outside the venue. It all looked so perfect. Too perfect. When she called to check in, I told her, "Everything's set, babe. It's going to be unforgettable." And I meant it. The wedding day. The sky was perfect. Clear blue with soft sunlight spilling across the field. Guests started arriving early, dressed to impress. The string quartet played softly as people took their seats, laughing and snapping photos. Then I saw him, Ryan. He showed up in a tailored suit, sunglasses on, and that smug little smirk that told me he thought he still had some kind of power. He walked up to Emily's maid of honor, who greeted him warmly. Of course she did. They'd all been in on it. When Emily arrived, she looked stunning, absolutely breathtaking. The lace dress, the flowers in her hair, the glow on her face. It hurt to look at her, because I still loved her, despite everything. The ceremony began. She walked down the aisle smiling at me, eyes sparkling, and for a moment I almost forgot what she'd done. Almost. We said our vows. Hers were emotional, carefully rehearsed. She even started crying halfway through, telling me I was the most selfless, loving man she'd ever known. Everyone applauded, but I knew the truth. When it was my turn, I held her hands and smiled. "Emily, I've waited for this day for a long time." I began, and there's something I want to share with everyone before we begin the rest of our lives together. A soft murmur rippled through the crowd. Emily looked confused, but tried to keep smiling. I gestured toward the big projector screen behind us, the one we planned to use later for a slideshow of our baby photos and engagement pictures. Nate, standing by the tech table, gave me a tiny thumbs up. The slideshow began, but not the one Emily expected. The first image was a screenshot of her email to Ryan, the one inviting him to wedding. Then another, a text exchange between them from a few weeks ago. She'd messaged, "I can't stop thinking about the old days. You were my first real love. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if things were different." The guests gasped. Someone dropped their champagne glass. Emily's face drained of color. "Turn it off," she hissed, spinning toward the tech table. But Nate didn't stop. More messages appeared. Voice notes, photos, flirty comments, and then a selfie of her in her wedding dress during her fitting, captioned, "If only you could see me now, huh?" The crowd went dead silent. I looked around and saw the maid of honor's face twist in horror. Ryan stood frozen, eyes wide, realizing how bad this had just gotten. Emily turned to me, tears welling up. "I can explain." I held up my hand. "No need. I think everyone here understands." I took the mic, my voice calm and steady. I spent the last year planning this wedding. I wanted it to be perfect for her. And now it is, because I finally see who she really is. Then I looked straight at Ryan. "Enjoy the party, man. You're paying for it." That last part wasn't a joke. I'd already canceled all final payments the night before. The vendors had been told not to release anything unless full payment was made that morning. And since Emily's name was on most of the contracts, she was legally responsible for the balance. I walked off the stage, leaving her standing there in shock, surrounded by whispers. Behind me, the screen flickered to black. The sound of whispers followed me all the way to the parking lot. I could still hear the faint music from inside the venue, a confused, chaotic tune as the guests tried to understand what had just happened. Somewhere in that noise was Emily's voice, breaking, pleading, calling my name. But I didn't turn around. Not once. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove away. My suit jacket was still unbuttoned, my tie half undone. I remember looking at my reflection in the rear-view mirror. I looked calm. Too calm, considering I had just detonated a social bomb at what was supposed to be the wedding of the year. By the time I reached my apartment, my phone had exploded with messages. My mom had called 5 times. My best man had texted, "Dude, what the hell did you just do?" Emily's losing it. Half the guests left. Ryan tried to leave, but people surrounded him. I turned the phone face down on the counter and opened a beer instead. For the first time in months, the silence in my apartment felt peaceful. The next morning, I woke up to over 100 notifications. Apparently, someone had filmed the entire thing. The slideshow, my speech, Emily's reaction, and it had already gone viral. The title read, "Groom exposes cheating bride at the altar in front of everyone." Millions of views, hundreds of thousands of comments. Half the people called me a legend. The other half called me cruel. But I didn't care what strangers thought. For me, it wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. I wasn't going to start a life based on lies. Not with someone who had been texting her ex while I was building her dream. I didn't speak to Emily for 3 days. I ignored every call, every message. When I finally checked my voicemail, she left a string of desperate, angry recordings. "How could you do that to me in front of everyone? You humiliated me. I lost everything. Please, let's talk. I made a mistake." A mistake? No, a mistake was burning dinner. What she did was betrayal dressed as nostalgia. A few weeks later, I met up with a friend who worked at the same hospital where Emily's sister was a nurse. He told me Emily had moved back with her parents. The wedding vendors were still demanding payment, nearly $40,000 worth. The venue had threatened to sue. Apparently, Ryan ghosted her after the wedding fiasco, vanished completely. The same week, Emily sent me a letter, a real one, handwritten. It was short, almost trembling. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. You didn't deserve what I did. I hope you find someone who actually sees you for who you are. I read it once and tucked in a drawer. I didn't hate her. I just didn't feel anything anymore. But here's where things get ironic. About 6 months after the wedding that wasn't, I was nominated for a regional award for the design firm I worked at. The project that had consumed my nights. While Emily was planning her fairy tale, it turned out to be a hit. The company won a huge contract, and I got promoted to senior architect. I showed up at the award dinner in a clean black suit. Reporters snapped photos. People congratulated me, shook my hand. It felt surreal, standing there, smiling for the cameras, realizing I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And then, across the room, I saw her. Emily. She looked different, smaller somehow. No makeup, no glow, just quiet sadness in her eyes. She wasn't there for me. Her company was catering the event. When our eyes met, she froze. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. I just nodded politely and walked away. That, right there, was the closure I didn't know I needed. It's been over a year now. Sometimes, I still think about how easily love can turn into illusion. How you can give someone everything, time, trust, money, and they still chase ghosts from their past. But I'm not bitter anymore. I bought a small house on the edge of town, peaceful, quiet, surrounded by trees. On weekends, I take my dog hiking or work on my motorcycle in the garage. Life isn't glamorous, but it's mine. A few months ago, a friend convinced me to join a small community project that builds affordable housing. That's where I met Sarah, one of the volunteers. She was kind, funny, grounded, no drama. We talked for hours about everything from architecture to old movies. And the funny part? She doesn't care about awards or weddings or grand gestures. She just likes sitting on the porch and watching the sunset. Sometimes when I look at her, I think about how close I came to marrying someone who saw me as a prop in her story. Now, I'm finally living my own. When people online still tag me in that viral wedding video, yeah, it's still floating around. I don't delete it. I let it stay, not because I'm proud of spectacle, but because it reminds me of one thing. The truth always finds a way to show up, even when it ruins a show. And honestly, I'd rather stand alone in honesty than walk down the aisle in a lie. A full 2 years passed after what people online still call the most awkward wedding ever. Life had gone quiet. Peacefully, meaningfully quiet. I'd built something steady out of the ashes. A business that was thriving. Friends who actually respected me. And a heart that had finally stopped flinching every time I heard her name. But one gray Sunday morning, a letter arrived. Same delicate handwriting I'd once memorized. Emily. I almost tossed it aside, but curiosity, or closure, won. Hey, James. I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I needed to write it anyway. I'm getting married again. To someone kind, someone who knows everything about me. I wanted to thank you, not for what happened that day, but for teaching me something I didn't understand back then. Love isn't about perfect weddings or perfect pictures. It's about truth, and you gave me that, even when it hurt. I sat there, letter trembling in my hands. For a moment, I let myself feel it. Not anger, not regret. Just a quiet, bittersweet peace. She had found her lesson, and I had found my life. Later that night, I walked out onto my porch. Sarah came out beside me, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, and handed me a mug of coffee. Another fan letter? She teased. Something like that, I said, smiling. The sun dipped below the horizon, lighting the sky in a slow orange burn. I thought about that younger version of me. The man who believed that love could be bought with grand gestures, that loyalty was guaranteed if you gave enough. He'd learned the hard way that some people only love the spotlight, not the soul beside it. Now I understood something better. The quiet moments, the ones that never go viral, are the ones that matter most. I turned to Sarah and said, "You know, I used to think I needed a perfect ending." She smiled, leaning her head against my shoulder. "You don't," she said softly. "You just need the right person to start again with." And for the first time in a long, long time, I realized I wasn't healing anymore. I was finally free. Sometimes the people who doubt your worth are just testing how deeply you believe in it yourself. And when the truth burns everything down, don't mourn the ashes. They're just proof that you finally stopped living in someone else's lie.